You're listening to the Laura the Library Lady podcast, presented by the Massillon Public Library.
Hi, it's Laura the Library Lady coming to you from the Massillon Public Library basement studio here in the Duncan House. And with me is author Kat Russell, who has also given me a really good description of our studio as a windowless, dank dungeon. I like that better than our, basement studio. But you can tell she's full of creative writing and creativity by that description. So, Kat has been a patron of the library for many years and is from our area here. So would you like to explain to us your background and where you're originally from?
Actually, I'm originally from Florida. And then
I forgot about that. I'm sorry. She's not an original Ohio.
It's all
She's a
your
transplant. All right.
But we came up here one year on vacation, and we loved it so much. So we came back and moved here when my son was about 6 months old, and then we moved to Canal Fulton when he was 2.
And there you are still yet today.
Yep. He's 22 now.
Oh my goodness. I know. And I remember him when he was about 5-6 years old.
All the librarians know him everywhere because I took him to all the area libraries. So.
That's wonderful. That's what we like to hear, using the library, reading, and then getting into your writing. So how did you start in writing?
Well, when he was little, I used to make up stories for him when he would get scared, like if he had to go get a shot from the doctor. His nickname was Monkey Boy. And so I would say, well, there's this chimpanzee at the zoo named Monkey Boy, and when he had to go to the vet and get a shot, and, so I would tell him these little stories. And then after a while, I heard about NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month every November.
I thought it was NaNoWriMo.
No,
I guess it's not.
It's Writing
National
Month.
Writing Month.
I hear people say NaNoWriMo, but I say NaNoWriMo because it's writing. Writing
is what it says. But that does make more sense now. I will correct myself.
Right. So anyway, I decided to write down all these stories I made for him. And, the thing that appealed to me is that it didn't have to be good. It just had to be long, had to be a certain length. And since I had never written anything before, I said, great, this will be just something I can bundle them up, give it to my son. It'll be a nice thing for him to have when he grows up, to remember that I made stories for him. And I loved it so much, I just kept going.
You never stopped.
Yeah.
So how did you start writing for other people?
Well, first I was writing for myself. I started writing stories about someone brings Shakespeare back from the dead, and then he wanted to become a very famous television writer, but somebody stole all his ideas. I write weird stories like that, and I did a lot of trunk novels, and then later on, I wrote poetry here and there. I think of myself primarily right now as a poet, but I didn't really write a lot of poetry until my father died several years ago, and it was a better outlet for my grief than writing short stories. So I started getting really into poetry, and I took advantage of a lot of the library resources. Libraries in this area are amazing.
We think so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, Massillon first introduced me to going to author fairs and stuff like that. And you guys offer free classes every so often. And then in Cleveland, they used to have this monthly poetry workshop that I would go to. They would offer a bunch of classes, free classes. They have a writing conference that's free once a year called Incubator. And then there's another one in the Cuyahoga area that's the Western Reserve Writers Con that's also free. I mean, there's a lot of resources. And the more events you go to, the more people you meet in the community. You start seeing the same people over and over again. And then they inspire you. All the classes and all the people. And, you are what you eat, and you are a compilation of all the things you absorb in your life. So that's what helped me.
That's a really good point, to absorb the creativity from other writers.
It's inspiring, to be around so many people who are this creative. You're thinking, wow, I've got to do something. I'm just, that's amazing. Maybe I'm not as good as that person, but, I want to try.
And you were writing for fun, to entertain yourself,
Right.
and then also to work through your emotions. Mm-hmm. So I'm imagining, it was really inspiring for you to see all these folks who are regular Ohioans, and yet realize how talented they are, even in comparison to national best-selling authors and poets, because we have a lot of talent right here.
Right, right.
Well, we were talking about you working through grief. Have you ever modeled a character after yourself, and did you find that therapeutic?
Yeah, I've modeled a couple of characters after myself, but with the grief, it was mostly, it was more working through my emotions. It wasn't about a character. It was me writing down my feelings, but using like metaphor and simile instead of just outright saying I'm miserable.
Right.
And actually, I still do. Not miserable, just
still using metaphors and similes.
Yeah, obviously. And and then with stories, you do a lot of wish fulfillment sometimes in stories too, but you don't want to make it just everything goes swimmingly for this person and everything they want comes to them naturally.
True, yeah.
You have to kind of put them through hell. And in my stories, I have literally put them through hell. So that was kind of fun.
You do have some darker poetry. Well, I wanted to know if you would read a short excerpt, and I think you're going to do one of your stories first rather than the poetry.
Yeah.
So Kat has several books that are out and are in the libraries also. So go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, this one is from my short story collection called An Optimus Journal of the End of Days and Other Stories. And it's inspired by Greek mythology. Who mourns for the Minotaur? My mother loved me, but how could she? I was the living, breathing embodiment of her shame, a beast born of bestiality. Whether my father lives or not, I don't know. I certainly never knew him. All I've known is this maze and, in the distant fog of memory, the tower, our tower. Why could not Daedalus have taken me too? He took the boy and, oh, how I envy him. Not just his escape, but to have a father who loves him, to have everything that was denied me. What did I know of my mother's adultery? As for my father, I never knew him. Not the one who sired me, to my mother's everlasting shame, nor the one that might have raised me, all unknowing of my real parentage, were it not for my resemblance to the divine bull that fathered me. If my sire was so beautiful, the gift of Poseidon that Minos refused to sacrifice, why am I considered so monstrous? Or is it my resemblance to my mother? What infant could earn such wrath? Why punish me for my mother's faithlessness? Still, in my dreams, I remember her, a woman with sad eyes who cradled my infant form, stroked the fur behind my ears while singing sweet lullabies. Hers was the only kindness I have ever known. In the tower we shared, we had watched the landscapers, the mathematicians, the workers of clay and wood and mortar, all their work overseen by Daedalus, the supreme architect of my misery. She would smile mournfully as children ran and played at the worksite, weaving their way freely through growing corridors that would one day be my prison. I wonder now if they were my brothers and sisters. I wonder if she knew what awaited me or merely suspected, all while she told me stories of gods and men, and of my grandfather Zeus wooing my grandmother in the form of another divine bull. Why then did Zeus turn a deaf ear to my prayers? Bulls, she told me, were beautiful, sleek and muscular, divinity of form. My beastly sire was nothing to be ashamed of, but a source of pride. Her shame was her own, her faithlessness to her husband, her broken marriage vow that led to our imprisonment was her fault alone. I know her words were meant as comfort, but even as a child I couldn't help but suspect the fault partly belonged to her husband, Minos. Had he been less cruel, she may have been more faithful. He may not have struck her, but could someone who imprisons a child be anything but a monster? My divinely created father is eternally absent. I do not know his fate. After many years, young men and girls have come to my maze. Do they know the way out? Are they my half-brothers and sisters, come to rescue me as Zeus rescued his siblings from the cruel bowels of Kronos? No, for with my every appearance they run away in terror. Their faces speak truths, their tongues do not. They are prisoners here just as I am. They can never leave, just as I cannot. But at least they have each other. I miss my mother. The other day, one of the youths came at me with a long, sharpened stick he must have made from surrounding greenery. I ran, but he pursued until I was trapped. I reached to wrest away his weapon, to plead with him, to tell him if he would but be my friend, I would show him how to feed on roots and sweet berries and survive. In the struggle, he pierced himself with his own lance. I screamed as he smeared his brown skin, my brown skin, with his scarlet blood. It is the first bloodshed I have ever known, though I caused it, and all unknowing. Can Minos say the same? The maze is open to the sky, and I can feel the sun's warmth, the cool breezes, hear the chattering of birds. If only the sounds of the lost youths were as sweet. I wonder what Daedalus and his son are doing now. Perhaps, if I keep my ears tuned and my eyes turned skyward, I will see them return for me.
Oh, bravo.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. I mean, how unique to write that from the perspective of the monster, the Minotaur in the labyrinth. It just really makes me want to go back and read, Greek mythology and understand the whole premise. But that was really great.
Thank you.
Very creative, and I really love your word choices and just very.
I always felt sorry for him because he was by himself, and
well, you're right, you do, and you really, I think your words really made it embody that sympathy for the creature, and talking about his mother and how she would have felt about him and how he felt about her.
Right.
Very, very cool. All right.
Thank you.
So do you feel that you ever get writer's block, and do you have advice for writers out there who might?
I think writer's block is kind of a misnomer. I mean, I'm not saying you don't get stuck sometimes, but I think that's just a cue to go and do something else. If you're stuck on one story, you can start another, or change the form, do a poem instead of a story, or a story instead of a poem, or go for a walk, or, watch a movie. Like, a lot of my poems are responses to other poems I've read. The more you consume, the more material you have for creating your own art.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice to, create a response to something else. And that's going to mean something to the reader, whether they have read the previous work or seen the previous movie or not, might make them want to go out and watch or read the original.
Yeah.
So if folks want to purchase your books, how do they find them? And how do we learn more about Kat Russell?
I have a Patreon at patreon.com/authorkatrussell. I have a writing blog, which is katrussellwriter.wordpress.com. My books could be found on Amazon and also through the publishers, which are Crisis Chronicles Press, Venetian Spider Press, and Writing Nights Press.
Very good. So something else that I like to ask folks sometimes is, what was the first book that ever made you cry?
that ever made me cry.
And putting you on the spot here, you have to think back.
I really don't know.
Now, every once in a while,
know.
we get someone who's like, I never cried at a book.
No, I have. I'm just trying to remember. I don't know the first one that's made me cry.
So half the people, didn't cry, and the other half of the people said, "Where the red fern grows."
I haven't read that one.
Oh, well,
No.
if you want to cry, you should read Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson
okay,
Rawls.
I don't necessarily want to cry. But I'm kind of a sap, so a lot of things make me cry, but I can't name the first thing. I have no idea.
So nothing specific, just
Nothing
you're
specific,
a sap. I like that.
Yes.
How many works do you have in progress as far as, a new book or something coming out?
Well, right now I'm working on an audio project, and I'm also just writing poems and general prose. I don't have a specific book planned right now. I was working for a while on my Hera novel, but I've taken a break from that.
So Hera, another Greek mythological character.
Yeah, because again, I think in mythology, she's always portrayed as being, just this completely evil, jealous woman. But she's the goddess of marriage, married to a serial adulterer.
How ironic.
I mean, can you blame her for being mad? And as far as, them blaming her for like going after Zeus's children and stuff, my take in my story is that she's misunderstood, that she's not necessarily doing those things. Other people are attributing to her. There's a lot of politics involved, because it's not to their benefit to make her look good. Her husband has to look good because he's the king. So
right.
they're just throwing her under the bus.
Oh.
So.
Well, I'll be waiting for that one, but that's
she's in my book. She's standing up for herself and trying to clear her name. So
sounds good. What's the best money you ever spent as a writer? What helped you the most?
I would say when I paid to go to a writer's conference. Most of the writers' conferences and workshops and stuff I've done, I have gotten free from libraries and things like that. But I would say going to the writers' conferences, because when I do go to one that I've paid for, there was a couple times where I had to pay to go. Anytime I can get around other creative people and take those classes, and it's always I come home and I'm all inspired and revved up, and I just can't wait to get writing. So,
and probably I'm assuming it's because you've paid for it. It's at a higher level. It's more in depth.
You would think so, but no,
not necessarily.
I don't think so. No. I think they were the same.
Wow,
they were the same.
All right, here's a good question for you. Do you Google yourself?
It's hard because my name is so common.
Oh,
it's Kat Russell. It's like Googling John Smith. It's. I tried to put an alert on my name, like with "and" in the titles of my books, or "and poet," or it doesn't matter. It's too common.
So yes, indeed, you do Google yourself, but
I do, but it doesn't do me any good.
Well, I think you have some poems chosen for us to hear today as well. So I'm looking forward to several poems from you. If you would like to go ahead and read us a couple of those.
Thank you. I figured because the book is several different types of poems. I mean, they're mostly free verse, but some are like a little political, some are a little fantasy, some are, they're all different themes. So I picked a few to give you like an idea of what's in the book.
So we can get a taste of some different ones. And, some of the words you're using here today, if we're not all the listeners are creative writers, they might not remember those terms from English class. But I think that would be something else that you would learn at these writing conferences, to kind of go back to your English 101 and talk about metaphor and simile and genres and all those things that, folks might be more interested in today than they were perhaps when they were teenagers.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't all that into poetry when I was in high school because it was older poetry that I had a hard time relating to.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I started taking the poetry workshop and everything and started getting exposed to more modern poets that I was like, actually, I really love this. I mean, there's poems everybody loves from older poets, like The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe or Kubla Khan by Coleridge or something like that everybody learns in school and everybody loves. But for the most part, a lot of those older poems didn't speak to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until I started listening to modern poets and local poets that I started feeling something more when I heard the poems or read the poems than just like when I was in high school and they just kind of glided over me.
Classics.
So
going in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. Though I do love The Raven. So
that's a good one.
So, okay, so I'll start off, since we're talking about learning new words, I'll start off with the title poem for my poetry collection, Kaleidoscope. So, Kaleidoscope. Today, I wondered what a group of butterflies is called. I'd heard them called a storm. Imagine them thundering through the sky on gossamer wings, sailing on solar winds, circling through the atmosphere, perfuming the air on paper-thin wings. Today I looked up what a group of butterflies is called. Some call them a rabble, but I cannot wrap my head round this term applied to such beauty. I see them in my mind's eye, flying in perfect sync, disregarding reality, no common insects but metamorphic miracles. Rebirth realized on feather-light wings, bright with the colors of the rainbow. Today I researched what a group of butterflies is called. They are sometimes called a swarm, but that term is forever wedded in my brain with bees buzzing round hives, slaving over honey, hovering over fragrant blooms, stinging small boys who run with overflowing eyes for mother kisses to heal their hurts. Not the almost silent flight of delicates, like colorful wrappings tossed aside after their gifts are opened, floating upon a summer breeze. Today I discovered what a group of butterflies is called. Their name is kaleidoscope, a term that makes perfect sense. Their colors swirling together, blending with the seasons, the ever-changing pattern, a perfect fusion of shifting complements, the envy of artists, flowers, and clear blue sky.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And to contrast that, the next poem is Things I'll Do in Hell. And we talked about writer's block and going out and doing something out. This is a reaction poem to Chris Martin's Things to Do in Hell. So I wrote my own response. Things I'll do in hell. I'll create with artists, troublemakers, rule breakers, splatter paint alongside Pollock, shape jubilees with jet engines, lace words, converse with Coleridge, write lines with Whitman, intersperse free verse with limericks, stitch rebellion into existential tapestries. I'll tune in to the music of the spheres, spin ellipses like CDs burning through the heavens, consume heretical symphonies, croon blues with every wistful soul, savor each melody sung, alleviate heartaches, gyrate with the rocks and rolls of the lates and greats, pound rhythms relentless as heartbeats. I'll party with those who know how, dancing on sunbeams, drinking like Hemingway, bathing in champagne, loving with abandon. I'll read every banned book ever written, feet propped up on a stack of freshly burned paperbacks, while away the eons by the rosy glow of eternal flames. All those interesting people, all those prohibited pleasures, all the time in the worlds await me there. Hand me that forbidden fruit. I ache for something juicy.
Ooh. I like it.
Thank you. And the last one is just short. It's word magic. Thoughts made solid on each page lift ink-stained swirls reaching the gods, themselves inkling thoughts made flesh. So sympathize, empathize with the words themselves. Those fetal deities do not die, for who could kill them? Ideas are immortal.
Wow. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. I think your writing is just beautiful and creative and juicy.
Thank you.
So I've enjoyed having you so much, Kat. Kat does a lot with local libraries, so you may see her on the bill for some programs. Sometimes she's done some events here at our library, and we're going to be looking forward to an event this October for a Halloween spooky themed poetry event. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And again, Kat, thank you for being with us. And
Thank you for having me.
everybody, don't forget to Google Kat Russell, author and poet. Thanks again.
All right, thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Jeff, and I hope you enjoyed listening to the Lore the Library Lady podcast. Join us for the local author book fair on Saturday, November 11th, 2023, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. This event is open to all and is held twice a year in both March and November. Browse, purchase books, meet, and network with local authors. Visit masslandlibrary.org for more information. Hope to see you there.